Joey, for that introduction, and I want to say thank you again for inviting me to speak. And I'd also like to acknowledge my co-speaker, Susanna, for all the work that she's doing in ocean health and restoration work. So I think one of the things I'd like to just position is that I've been very fortunate in my role as the artist in residence at the Earth Observatory of Singapore. And it's an amazing organization which is part of Nanyang Technological University. It's an area of research that looks into ocean, coastal habitats, earthquakes and tectonics. And in particular in oceans, we've been looking a lot at coral reefs, sea level rise, acidification. And I think it's been really pleasing to hear here at the conference the conversations that have been going on around the interaction between the ocean and the atmosphere and the acknowledgement of them being such a coupled system. I think if I go back 9 years ago, I was very fortunate to direct a series called The Tipping Points, and it was then that we started to truly understand that the climate was a system and that system had many moving parts. And I remember at a dinner party once saying, well, imagine if you lift the bonnet of your car and you said, well, let's just drain a bit of the fluid here, let's move a bit of the mechanics over here, we might take out 1 or 2 pipes, we'll put the lid back down. Do you think that car would still perform safely? Would you feel confident about driving it? I don't think I've had one dinner party I've been at yet where anybody has said yes. And so, you know, my point is that the climate is a very complicated system and it has many moving parts. And the most important part of that system we are learning is the ocean. And without a healthy ocean, we don't actually have a stable climate system. And we've had a stable climate system for the last 10,000 years. So we're now in an area of uncertainty, and we need to move quickly back as fast as we can to a more stable system. And that requires a lot of effort on many levels. But one of those efforts must be in the ocean. And within the ocean, at the Earth Observatory of Singapore, we have been focusing also our research on sea level rise and ocean coral health. And in Southeast Asia, we have over 70% of all corals are found in the coral triangle. And we know that corals are really like a nursery. They're a nursery for fish, they're a nursery for the birth of fish and the areas of the different types of plankton that live in the sea that make it habitable. So I think it's very important that we do focus on understanding coral reefs and monitoring them. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, we may not have discovered something quite hopeful, which is a group of supercorals off the coast of Singapore. In fact, our scientists normally would have been on planes flying to different coral reefs in the region, but because we were unable to fly and unable to travel, we turned our attention to some coral reefs. We call them urban coral reefs. And in those urban coral reefs, we discovered something quite pleasing. We discovered some corals, and we're calling them supercorals. That's our nickname for them, because these coral reefs are showing resilience and an ability to adapt to a changing situation. And so we have been studying those coral reefs to truly understand how these coral reefs are becoming more adaptable. What is it about them that makes them resilient? And how can these coral reefs and our study of them help other coral reefs that are more fragile, coral reefs that are in pristine areas like the Great Barrier Reef? Our coral reefs and urban corals in urban oceans around Southeast Asia tend to have to deal with a lot of sediment, a lot of movement because there's a lot of shipping traffic, and in fact they have had to deal with quite a bit of disturbance, but they've become resilient. So in a film that we did last year, we made a series called Changing Ocean. And it was a series I wrote and directed with the Earth Observatory of Singapore, who are wonderful in supporting translational science. And it's playing out now on Amazon Prime, Apple Television, and about 45 streaming platforms. So for us, it's really important to get translational science to community, to business, and to government. And I think what this series has shown us, which was narrated by the amazing Sylvia Earle, who's on our scientific advisory panel at the Earth Observatory of Singapore, what it's shown us is that there is hope. And I'd like to share with you a short video from the series. We just cut about a 7-minute segment of urban oceans and supercorals to share with you today. We will play this in 1 second, but I'd like you to have a look at these urban coral reefs that we are now studying to see how we can learn from them and how that learning can be applied to global reefs. Secondly, we also were very pleased to work with Dr. Greg Asner. I actually bumped into Greg Asner, funnily enough, when I was in the middle of the Amazon about 9 years ago filming a series. And at that stage, he was flying a plane across the Amazon, measuring the only airborne laboratory measuring the rate of change of the Amazonian rainforest. He has since turned his attention, with the help of the late Allen Foundation, to create an amazing network to be able to monitor coral reefs. And it is the first time that all the coral reefs in the world are now being monitored through the Allen Atlas program and connected to satellites. Amazingly, they've achieved this in 3 years. So my point of telling these two parts of the story is that I think that there are amazing scientists that are working really hard to try and plug the knowledge gaps that we're missing to help create a healthy ocean for the future. So with that, I'd like to say, let's have a look at this short part of the video, and thank you very much for your attention.